The sea was quiet, but never still. Beneath the calm, something ancient breathed. Sailors whispered of shapes in the dark, shadows that rose without warning. Not monsters, not gods, something in between. The water remembered everything it had ever taken, and sometimes it gave those memories back. The Umebozu surfaced when the world was too sure of itself. The creature came from the black waters off Japan's coast, where superstition clung as tightly as barnacles to a hull. Sailors said it rose from a sea that looked too calm before a storm. A towering figure, faceless, smooth as ink. They said its head was like a monk's, bald, glistening, its body half hidden beneath the waves. Some believed it was the ghost of a drowned priest, a spirit angered by sailors who mocked the gods. Others said it was the ocean itself, made flesh to remind men who ruled the waters. The Umebozu would appear beside a ship, towering over its mast, watching without eyes. Then, in a voice like thunder muffled by water, it would demand a barrel. If the sailors offered a full one, it would fill it with seawater and sink them. But the wise filled the barrel with air, and sometimes the ship would be spared. No one ever saw the Umebozu in sunlight. It belonged to the grey hour, when sea and sky became the same shade of endless. And when it vanished, it left no ripple, no proof it had ever been there, only silence, heavy and absolute. There were other demons of the deep, though not all wore faces. Some took on legends, whispered through the mouths of men. Davy Jones. His name carried across centuries like a curse. No one knew who he had been, a sailor, a sinner, or something else entirely. The stories disagreed, but all agreed on one thing. He ruled the bottom of the sea. Davy Jones's locker, that's where the drowned went. Every man lost to the waves, every ship that never came home was said to be his. Some described him as a devil of the deep, others as a keeper, collecting the lost like coins at the bottom of a well. They said when the sea went still after a storm, that was him counting the dead. Sailors feared to speak his name at sea, for to do so was to invite him aboard. He was the sound in the rigging on a windless night, the whisper through the hull when the ship drifted off course. Some thought Davy Jones was punishment, a reflection of every sailor's sin cast back from the deep. But others thought he was mercy, that to sink into his locker was to escape the endless struggle of the sea. Every drowning man saw him differently, but all saw him, and when the bubbles stopped rising, Davy Jones's hand was always the last thing they felt. The Greeks too knew the sea's cruelty. Their sailors told of two horrors that lived side by side, Charybdis and Scylla. To pass between them was to gamble one's life, because both were hungry. Charybdis had once been divine, a daughter of Poseidon, proud and vast. But she was cursed for her greed, condemned to spend eternity swallowing the sea 3 times a day and spewing it out again. The whirlpool was her mouth, the current her throat. Ships vanished into her with a single gulp, their masts spinning into splinters. Sailors could hear her before they saw her, the roar of the water, a voice calling them closer. Some swore they glimpsed eyes beneath the foam, a shadow the size of a mountain. They said she was punishment for those who coveted too much, her hunger bottomless and blind. Yet she was not alone in her hunger, for across the strait, something waited that was worse. Scylla had once been a maiden, loved by gods, envied by nymphs. Her beauty was her undoing. A jealous rival poured poison into her bath, and where her body had been soft and human, it grew monstrous. From her waist down sprouted snapping dogs, serpents, and claws. Her face remained beautiful, a cruel echo of what she had been. Scylla took refuge in a cliff above the narrow strait, and when ships passed too close, her dogs would strike, snatching sailors into the air and tearing them apart. Those who fled her sailed too near Charybdis, and those who fled the whirlpool met her teeth. To be caught between them became a phrase that outlived them both. Between Scylla and Charybdis, between two evils with no escape. They say her cries still echo in the strait, though they sound less like rage now, and more like regret. Charybdis devoured the sea itself. Scylla devoured everything else. Together, they taught mankind the first lesson of the ocean. Not all dangers are seen, and not all beauty is kind. But the sea did not only belong to monsters, sometimes it belonged to voices. Off the coast of Scotland, in the cold grey waters of the Minch, sailors spoke of the Blue Men. They were said to rise from the waves before a storm, their skin the colour of twilight, their hair tangled with seaweed, their eyes like moonlight through fog. They were not ghosts, nor entirely flesh, something in between. They would swim alongside ships, their laughter carried by the wind, and if a captain heard them sing, he knew his fate hung by a thread. The Blue Men would call out in riddles, their words smooth and sharp as polished shells. Answer correctly, and they would let the ship pass. Answer wrong, and they would summon the storm. They were said to be the spirits of drowned warriors, condemned to guard the seas they once conquered. Others believed they were simply the sea's messengers, sent to remind man of his arrogance. They were not evil, only honest. To meet them was to face the truth of the water, that survival was never a guarantee. Some captains tried to outwit them, boasting of strength and speed, but the Blue Men did not care for pride, they cared for respect. And those who answered humbly sometimes found the winds shift, the storm fading, the sea merciful. But when arrogance ruled the tongue, the waves rose, and the Blue Men smiled, disappearing beneath the foam as another ship went under. Far to the west, beneath the turquoise surface of the Caribbean, hides something much less forgiving. In the blue holes of the Bahamas, divers whisper about the Lusca, half shark, half octopus, all hunger. It lives in the underwater caves that twist for miles beneath the sea floor, in darkness untouched by light. Fishermen tell of whirlpools forming without warning, boats vanishing as if swallowed whole. When divers go missing, locals say the Lusca took them, dragged them into its lair, where the coral is slick with bone dust. Some describe it as massive, a shadow stretching longer than a ship, its tentacles curling like smoke through the water. Others say it can change its shape, hiding beneath the reefs, waiting. The ocean around it is still, unnaturally quiet, as though even the waves are afraid to breathe. Some claim the Lusca is no animal at all, but a remnant, something that has survived from before men had names for fear, a creature of the deep that remembers a time when the sea belonged to nothing but itself. It has no voice, no mercy, no pattern, only hunger. And in the depths of the Bahamian blue holes, where light fades and pressure rises, the Lusca waits for anything foolish enough to come too close. The Leviathan was the first to wake. In the old scriptures, it was written as a beast of impossible size, coiled in the black, eyes burning like the heart of a storm. Some said it had scales that reflected every color of the sea, each one a mirror of the world above. Others said it was made of shadow and salt, an embodiment of chaos itself. In Hebrew legend, Leviathan was one of the first creatures born, a serpent so vast it circled the earth and swallowed its own tail. Its roar could shake mountains, and its breath could boil the sea. The ancient texts warned that it would return at the end of days, devouring creation before being devoured in turn. But to the sailors who crossed deep waters, Leviathan wasn't a myth of the future, it was a presence. When the sky turned black and the horizon vanished, when waves rose higher than faith, they said Leviathan was near, turning in its sleep. The sea didn't move like that without reason, it moved because something beneath it did. Far across the world, in the warm turquoise shallows of the Pacific, another story lived and breathed, the tale of Tangaroa and his forgotten children. In Polynesian myth, Tangaroa was the god of the ocean, the father of all that lived beneath the waves. But not all his offspring were kind. Some became guardians of the reef, shimmering and watchful, protecting the balance of life. Others grew monstrous, twisted by wrath and neglect. They were the ones who dragged fishermen from their canoes, who rose from the depths when offerings were not made. Islanders spoke of glowing shapes beneath the water at night, long, graceful, terrible. They said Tangaroa's children could feel disrespect, that a single careless act, dumping waste into the sea, killing more fish than needed, was enough to summon their vengeance. Some who angered them never returned. Others came back changed, silent, with eyes that looked too far inward. The ocean, they said, remembers every offense, and those who forget to honor it will one day feel Tangaroa's hand close around their fate. But the cold seas of the north have their own keepers, less divine and far more cruel. In the lands of ice and endless night, parents warn their children of the Kalupalik. It is said to live beneath the frozen edges of the Arctic, where the water turns black and the ice groans like old wood. The Kalupalik waits by the cracks, humming softly. It wears sealskin clothing and has green mottled skin that glows faintly beneath the ice. It is not a monster of rage, it is patient, maternal, almost tender in its cruelty. When a child strays too close to the water's edge, the Kalupalik's long fingers reach up, pulling them below. The legend is a warning, a story meant to keep the young from danger. But sometimes, footprints do lead right up to the ice and never return. Hunters have heard the humming on still nights, a lullaby rising from the dark. Some say the Kalupalik keeps the children alive beneath the ice, frozen in time, still breathing, their eyes open and watching. Others say it eats them slowly, keeping only their voices to sing the next one down. Whether real or not, the story serves its purpose. In the Arctic, the sea doesn't forgive curiosity. South of the ice, in the endless sweep of the Pacific, another leviathan once ruled, Te Wekea Muturangi, the great octopus of Maori legend. It was said to be enormous, its tentacles stretching for miles, each one capable of pulling a canoe beneath the waves. The stories say it was pursued by the navigator Kupe, the man who first discovered Aotearoa, New Zealand. Te Wake fled through the ocean, its body gliding through the depths like a shadow without form. When Kupe caught it, the sea boiled with fury, waves rising as though the water itself tried to protect its child. They fought for days, man and monster, until finally, Kupe struck it down. The ocean turned red with its blood, and when the tide receded, New Island stood where its body fell. Even in death, Te Wake's legend lived. Fishermen claim to see its descendants, smaller but no less terrible, coiled around reefs and shipwrecks, their eyes bright and old. Sometimes, when a net drags too deep and tears for no reason, they say Te Wake is still fighting back. The sea remembers the wound. But there was one more that the sailors feared above all others, a creature neither seen nor truly believed, yet never forgotten. In the days before maps, when ships followed stars and instinct, there was talk of the Black Mariner. Not a man, not a beast, something in between. Some said it was a sailor who had drowned centuries ago and had refused to die. Others said it was the sea itself, wearing a man's shape to walk among the living. He appeared only before a storm, standing on the waves as if they were solid, his coat dripping black water that never fell away. His face was pale, his eyes hollow, and he said nothing. When ships tried to turn away, the wind would shift against them. When they called out, he vanished. But those who saw him knew what came next, the kind of storm that erased names. Survivors claimed that he guided ships down rather than saving them, leading them to join him below. Some believed he commanded the souls of the drowned, a captain of the lost. Others thought he was mercy itself, ending the suffering before the sea could draw it out. The truth was never known. Only this: when the Black Mariner appeared, the horizon died with him. The ocean has 1,000 faces, and none of them are kind. Each one a warning, a story, a truth disguised as myth. They are the voices of the water, whispering the same thing over and over through every tide and every century. The sea takes what it's owed, always.